The previous stage ended at Mbandaka, where the equator reached the Congo River system after crossing the wet interior of Central Africa. From here, the line does not leave the basin immediately. It continues east through forests, rivers, mud roads, highlands, lakes, borders, and eventually the drier frontier lands of East Africa. This is the stage where the crossing changes character, from basin movement to mobility, from river logic to road corridors, from humid forest to elevation and open land. After Mbandaka, the equator continues east into the heart of the Congo Basin. Forest remains dense, humidity remains constant. One viable corridor follows the Rookie River. By boat, progress is steady, with villages appearing only occasionally along the banks. Eventually, the route reaches Boende, a functional inland town, a node where river movement gives way to land logistics. From here, two strategies appear. The first is infrastructural. Mapped roads run from Buende toward Kisangani and beyond. They are not highways, they are mud corridors, passable with difficulty in the dry season, slower and sometimes broken in the wet season. Bridges are fragile. Traffic is irregular. East of Kisangani, the terrain begins to rise and the basin slowly yields to higher ground. This is the road solution. Less pure, more stable. The second is geometric. Stay as close as possible to 0 degrees and leave infrastructure behind. That means dense equatorial forest, no marked trail, no consistent transport line, swamp patches, river crossings without bridges, heavy insects, and movement by compass and satellite rather than road. Distance shrinks on the map. Difficulty multiplies on the ground. Unlike Siberia, this is not empty wilderness. Communities exist. Some are isolated. Some areas are sensitive. In eastern DRC, security conditions are not uniform. So the real choice is not just physical. It is between geometric purity and operational stability. The equator does not choose, the traveler must. Whichever line is taken, the terrain eventually changes. The endless flatness of the Congo Basin begins to lift. Forest becomes less uniform. Relief appears. Air cools. Approaching Butembo, the route reaches the western edge of the East African Rift System. Altitude begins to replace humidity as the main organizing force. After thousands of kilometers of lowland basin forest, the equator now crosses volcanic highlands. From Butembo to Kasindi, movement becomes structured again. A functioning road, an official border, a corridor that feels connected after the basin. Across the line lies Bwera in Uganda. The Central African forest does not end in emptiness. It ends in elevation. Across the border at Bwera, the equator enters Uganda. The dense lowland rainforest is behind. Volcanic foothills, savanna, farmland and rift landscapes take over. From Bwera to Kikorongo, a functioning road runs close to the line. Then water intervenes. Lake George blocks direct passage. It is a shallow rift lake, edged by wetlands and wildlife corridors. No straight causeway follows 0 degrees here, so the solution is simple: boat. Once across, infrastructure improves again. Rural roads run near the equator. Markers appear by the roadside. The route continues east until the northern shores of Lake Victoria appear. And here, once again, the line divides into two strategies. The first follows the northern shore. Roads pass through Kampala. Density increases. Urban structure returns. From there, the corridor continues east to Busia and onward into Kenya. Structured, predictable, legal. The second is more geometric. Cross Lake Victoria itself on latitude 0. That is cleaner on the map, but more complicated in administration. Exit from Uganda and entry into Kenya still have to be handled properly. The lake does not erase the border, it only hides it. Uganda marks a larger shift in the crossing. The expedition logic of Central Africa begins to give way to mobility logic. Eastward, the line becomes easier to move along, but not simpler in geography. From Uganda, the route converges toward Kisumu as the equator enters Kenya from the Lake Victoria Basin. The landscape changes quickly. Altitude reshapes the climate. Rainforest is gone. Savanna, agricultural plains, and scattered acacia take over. Movement becomes easier. Highways function. Governance is more stable. Infrastructure is legible again. The equator crosses high ground here. To the north rises Mount Kenya, with glaciated peaks far above tropical latitude. One of the clearest reminders that the equator does not choose easy terrain. It intersects whatever geography exists. Farther east, the land dries again. Vegetation thins. Water becomes more seasonal. The line approaches the northeastern frontier. The strategic objective is the closest official crossing toward Somalia. And once again the route divides. The reliable road corridors bends north toward Habaswein. Deviation increases, but continuity remains intact. Fuel, towns, checkpoints, movement. A closer attempt to stay near 0 degrees would mean dealing with uncertain tracks, wildlife areas, protected zones, and more complicated permissions. The line is straight, the terrain is not. Kenya is relatively stable, but the northeastern corridor toward Somalia remains security sensitive. Here, the challenge is no longer rainforest or basin drainage. It is proximity to a volatile frontier. From lake to volcanic highland to semi-arid savanna, the equator has already transformed Africa once again. Ahead lies Somalia. At the edge of northeastern Kenya, this stage pauses. Since Mbandaka, the equator changed completely. It has moved from river corridors and forest uncertainty into rift highlands, lake crossings, roads, farmland, savanna, and dry frontier country. The line is now easier to move along than it was inside the Congo Basin, but it is not simpler. Infrastructure has returned, yet the crossing approaches a more sensitive political edge. Ahead, Africa narrows toward Somalia. Beyond that final stretch of land, the equator will leave the continent and enter the Indian Ocean.